Corporal Curtis Cameron, I want to talk to you because you were in World War II and you flew airborne troops into France on D-Day. And that is, no words can describe that. But can you tell us a little bit about that day?
Well, on the night of D-Day, we stayed up all night long. We were loading gliders, which a glider has a wingspan of 83 feet, and the fuselage is 48, and it carries a load of 4,000 pounds. And we loaded those with 55-gallon cans of gasoline. We had D4 Caterpillars. We had 75-millimeter cannons that was in the gliders, and also weapons carriers. And they also carried 15 paratroopers with full packs on. And so I think we on the runway, I think we probably had a couple hundred gliders, and they were pulled by a C-47, which is nothing but a DC-3. And they pulled two of those at a time. Two of those on a 100-foot rope and a 150-foot rope.
Wow. So what was your exact job in all of this?
Well, my main job, I wound up and I was hooking the tow ropes on all the airplanes. And after we got through loading them and everything, and so, but it was quite a deal, and we had. The gliders were only supposed to be used in 15 minutes in combat, and we had some of them that flew as high as 6 times, because when they'd go in and where the gliders had landed, we would put a rail in front of them about 30 feet, and then we would put the tow rope on it and take it out about 100 feet with a big loop. The C-47 had a hook on the bottom of the belly of the airplane. They'd come along and they'd snatch it up. You go 30 foot forward and 300 feet straight up.
So you guys were just constantly rotating them.
Yeah, rotating, and so, but we would the ones that were brought back, we patched all the fabric with dope and fabric, and patched all the holes and sent them out again. But after the first wave of gliders went in, we had to take all the seats apart, fill them with sand, pack them real hard, because most people were getting shot in the rear. And so in order to save the pilots, why we did that, which was a safety factor for that.
Did that actually work?
Yes, it really worked.
Wow.
With 4 inches of hard concrete, like sand was like concrete, and it saved the guys, a lot of them. And so, but most places our casualty was 80%.
Oh my gosh. Did these guys know what they were getting themselves into on that night?
Well,
or that day?
Not really. It was, you went through an era which is a little bit different than it is today. Everybody was anxious to get into the war in order to get it over with. And so the pilots, they knew that they was going to have trouble, but they never talked about it. And so, but it was it was quite a deal.
Sounds like it. And so you saved lives just by even packing sand into the seats and patching the holes in the gliders and sending them out. And it's such an honor just to sit here with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's amazing. Oh, puts me to tears.
No, but anyway, it was quite an experience, and so, but I'll have to tell you later on about some of the experiences I've had, but I went through, and the only scratch I ever got was a broken beer bottle in my leg.
I heard something about you and beer. Is this...
Well, you know, when I was drafted, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was only 18 years old. I didn't have any sense. And so, but I have to brag about being 18 when I went in, because I went in on the 10th of January, and my birthday was the 11th, and so I was in for 18 for one day. So, but anyway, we.
Kurt, tell them about your experience with the bomb crater.
Oh, well, I love to drink, and so I tried to keep them busy at night, and so I went to town, and when I come home, outside of going into the barracks where we was at, there was a 500-pound bomb that went off and blowed a hole down about 40 feet, and a great big hole in the ground. And so I was pretty well loaded and staggered, and I fell in the bomb hole and into the mud up to my chest. And so there I was hollering for help, somebody to help pull me out. And so my buddies come along, and they finally dragged me out of there. But that was quite a mess. And so, but I was always in trouble for some reason or other. I don't know, because I had to. I remember many days I spent my time shining the first sergeant's shoes, and there's a penalty for that. But you know, I went through everything, and I have a lot of good memories, and I happen to be the only one of our crew that is still alive today. So all the rest of my buddies is all passed on. So, but.
We were John. You said that he kept being demoted. Is this true?
Yes, I mean he went from corporal to sergeant, back to corporal to sergeant, back to corporal.
And so, but it was real funny after I got discharged. I was in charge of 5 guys, and the 5 guys that I was in charge with were all staff sergeants that got busted, and they were all privates, and I was the corporal in top. So. At least I got even with them, and so,
Well, it sounds like you made a little light of the situation you were in.
Well,
a little bit.
You know, I always went by the theory that Dad used to say: you might as well enjoy life. You're not going to get out of it anyway.
There you go.
that worked pretty true, and so. But
so how long were you in that hole that you staggered into?
Oh, probably half hour. What the hell? I didn't. Time was no effort there. No,
you probably didn't even know. You weren't even aware.
But then when I was stationed in Orleans, we were downtown one day, and some little dried up Frenchman come up to me, and he had a flag and his underneath his arm, and he said. Would I do him a favor? And I said, yeah, I'll do you a favor. What do you want? And he said, would you take this flag home with you? And so I said, well, yes, I could do that. And so he said, well, I'll never be back to America again, so I wish you'd take it home with you. So I wished I'd got his name, but things like that pass, you know. But I brought the flag home and I unfolded it, and it was full of either bullet holes or moth holes. The whole flag was, and so I put it in a triangle shaped case with a glass on it and everything else, and wrote this story and put it in there. And
so you still have it?
And my youngest kid, my daughter, she's 50, and she said, "Dad, I want that," so I gave it to her. So
wow.
I understand, Kurt, that flag was a World War I.
Yeah, and it was 48 stars on it.
48 stars when America.
But I don't know.
It was in the First World War.
Wow.
But he stayed over. He was a World War I vet that stayed over in France after there was a lot of guys that stayed over and didn't come home. And so he was one of them.
Wow.
And so, but...
well, thank you. Thank you for sharing part of your story. I didn't want to leave you out, John.
Well, my story is not as dramatic as I did. I've served 26 years in the military. I did a tour... Again, I didn't have the eyes to be a pilot, but I was a comptroller, financial officer most of my career, and did my tour was at Utapao, Thailand during the Vietnam War, where the B-52s and the KC-135s, the B-52s flew the bombing of the North and during that time, and the KC-135s that refueled them on the way. And again, I was the comptroller for the unit there. Which, when you're the guy that's responsible for paying people, that can be almost as dangerous as. However, you are also feared and respected because you control the funds for the organization. And I was over there in 1970 to 71. Our unit received many citations and awards during that period for the. One of the things that surprised me, during that year they lost 12 B-52s in the bombing of the North, and most of the crew members came back, except for the what is called an RN, a radar navigators, which were the people that were responsible for in a bomber for the security of the airplane, meaning the defensive mechanisms and stuff like that. And all of those crew members that were recovered were sent from Vietnam to Moscow. And none of them were ever heard from again. I mean, and my feeling was, our feeling always was that that the Russians wanted to get as much information on how our aircraft were defended, for their own purposes. And
do you mean like spies?
Well, no, they weren't. They were on the they wanted to get the information right so that they could come up with countermeasures to our defensive measures for the airplane. I mean, there were things like chaff and that you fire out of the airplane to misdirect the SAM missiles that would be shot from the ground and stuff like that. Well, of course, the Russians were interested in knowing how we would defend our airplanes, and so that's why none of these radar navigators that were shot down. Fortunately, in the entire war, we only lost 12, but that was more than enough. Of course, and a number of people that I knew wound up being prisoners of war in Vietnam. Some there 5 and 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton, and one of my best friends' father was there during that time, and while he was serving as a forward air controller flying off a field in Cambodia, his father was a prisoner in Vietnam, in North Vietnam, and so every time he could bring the fighters in on the enemy, he relished that.
I'll bet.
Thought. Right.
I'll bet.
Okay. After I came back from Vietnam, I cross-trained into Titan missiles, which nuclear missiles, and was stationed at Davis-Monthan as a crew commander for a Titan II missile, which was a very interesting experience, obviously highly classified. We had the missiles right there where we are. You went down into the, by an elevator, and we'd go to the left, and you'd go to the control center, and you went to the right, you went to the missile, and would look up and see a 9-story, 8-megaton missile, which of course were there to defend the nation should World War III come along. But
wow.
Fortunately, that didn't have to happen.
Well, thank you so much, Major John Medlin and Corporal Curtis Cameron, representing VFW Post 1781. They meet on Tuesdays, the first Tuesday of the month at 7 o'clock, and everyone is welcome. Please, veterans of Fort Collins. Thanks for joining us on Rocky Mountain Viewpoints. If you have any ideas, something that might be of interest, please send an email to viewpoints@clearchannel.com. Rocky Mountain Viewpoints is a presentation of this Clear Channel of Northern Colorado station.